Hello, my name is LuAu. My students call me Miss LuAu for short. And I'm going to show you how to make candy lace. All you need are some candies. Now I'm going to use Hershey's Kisses, but you can use any kind of candies as you'll see later on. But I just use candies, Glad wrap, scissors, and curling ribbon. Okay, now I've already cut these ribbons so that they're about 5.5 inches long. That's, for me, makes it easy to cut. And I always cut it at an angle, about a 45-degree angle, so it looks pretty. So here we go. Now I make so many candy lays that I made myself a jig. It's just a 2x4, 4 feet long, and I divided it into 22 sections, and it holds 44 Hershey's Kisses and makes a nice length of leg. So you pull your Glad wrap. You gotta be careful so you don't perforate it. Pull your Glad wrap. That's about the worst I've ever done as far as laying out my Glad wrap. But I like Glad wrap because you can make pretty much any kind of lay. You can use any kind of candy. You don't have to buy a pre-measured thing. Okay, so I get my Hershey's Kisses in pairs and I lay it down in the groove that I routed out of my 2x4. And of course not everybody's going to want to go and make a jig like this, but I make sometimes 35 lays a month. And so I had to find a way that would help make it quickly, or make time go by quickly for me. Maybe able to allow me to make a lot of lays quickly. Boy, it took me a long time to figure out how to say that. Okay, so I'm just laying out my 44 candies. And it's funny because I started with hugs and kisses, but hugs are more expensive, so now I just use kisses. But I started making these many lays because I belong to a very large choir, and every spring we have what we call a retirement. And there were so many of my friends who were going to retire, I wanted to say goodbye in a way that would help take away the sting from saying goodbye, because I knew I'd miss them. Anyway, once I've laid out my candies, then I take the Glad wrap and I fold it over. And then I use my arms to kind of make a seal. Okay. Then I start rolling and rolling and rolling until the candies are all rolled up like that. Okay, now an important step. You start in the middle because you're going to be sliding these candies along. Okay, so you start in the middle. Here's one of my pre-cut ribbons, and I just make 2 knots in it. I used to work at making a square knot, but I found out if I just tie it twice, that holds it, you know, tightly maybe. And I like to do my kisses end to end because then it makes an easy place to tie, a nice little tie in between the candies. And once you see it finished, it's a very pretty, elegant looking lay. I used to use blue ribbon for the men that were retiring and pink for the women, but now I usually just use white. But for the purpose of making this video, I thought I would use blue so you could see better the ribbon. So, one of the reasons you start in the middle is so that you can move the candies and you won't run out of Glad wrap one way or the other. And I forgot to mention that I always put extra Glad wrap over the ends of my jig because it's better to have too much length than too short a length. Okay, I don't know if you're going to want to watch me tie every single tie.
We can speed this portion up, just like show a
All right.
accelerated version of it. And so you don't have to talk, right?
The thing I like about this, like I said, is you can make it out of any kind of candy. When you wrap the candy, it helps keep it fresh, and it also helps keep it from melting on people's clothing. I knew of a hostess who made candy Leis for her Christmas gifts at a fancy dress party out of lint truffles. And it was a disaster because the truffles melted all over her guest's fancy dress clothing. I know because my sister was a guest there, so I thought, oh, if only that hostess had told me, I would have told her, this is a good way, wrap your candies in Glad wrap and it won't melt all over everything. Now, the chocolate candies do get warm, but I made them as gifts recently for a Christmas party, and everybody just kept wearing their Leis and nobody took them off. They really liked them. Okay, and I just kind of tighten that at the end. Okay, now I'll start working in the other direction. And again, just tying twice. My arthritis in my hands sometimes slows me down, but I can still make these candy Leis. I like to tighten the wrap so that it, you don't have saggy Glad wrap around your candies. So just push the candies along, tighten, and then tie the Leis. Now, I have used longer ties and then curled them, but that takes a lot of extra time. And like I said, when you're making 35 at a time, you want things to go quickly. So I started just cutting the ribbon short so that I don't have to cut it again or curl it again. And I think it makes a pretty Leis. At least the people I give these Leis to seem to like it. Again, my arthritis is getting in the way. That'll happen. Okay, so 44 candies, 21 of these little ties. We've wrapped the candy in Glad wrap so it doesn't melt on people's clothing, and it keeps your candies fresh too. And remember, as you pull the Glad wrap out of the box, you're careful not to perforate it because you don't want any holes in it. Almost done. Okay, I actually cut 22 of those ties, but you only need 21. Okay, so I've come to the end of my candies, and I just wind it like that. Okay, now I join the ends together. I use a longer ribbon to tie in. I used to use one of those plastic ties, and I found out if I just use ribbon and tie it really tight, it holds very nicely. Then I cut the two ends. Now I like to add some more curling ribbons. And so here are some ribbons that are kind of pre-curled. Yeah, if I can find the other end. There it is. Tie that. And then I'll add a bow, a little white bow that I had made ahead of time, and I tie it around the lei. And again, just maybe 2 knots. Then I take my scissors and all these long ends. Of course, that's the wonderful thing about curling ribbon. You just curl the ends. And there's your lei. For my friends in the choir that I talk about that are retiring, I like to leave a little message. And this one says, and I just made it myself, mahalo, which means thank you in Hawaiian, for your many years of faithful service, and aloha, farewell. So that's the final touch to these little handmade candy leis. And I tie that little message on to the lei. And as I present the lei over their heads, I tell them the words in the message, and I kiss them on both cheeks. And it's just a nice way of saying thank you and farewell. And that's how you wear your lei. I've been making candy leis for years, and there's a lot of reasons to give leis, but the thing that I like most is out of love. I had so many friends who were retiring from this choir, and I wanted to say thank you and let them know that I love them and to say goodbye. So it's a great way to say farewell. It's also a wonderful way to welcome someone. It's also fun. I give my piano students candy leis for their birthday. They tell me what their favorite candy is and their favorite color. And so, of course, I use their candy and their favorite color to make their birthday leis. I make them for Christmas as gifts. I make them for graduation presents. Oh, and it's a lot cheaper than shipping flower leis over from Hawaii, because I did that for all my children when they graduated. $35 to $50 just for shipping. And my children are older now. So anyway, candy leis are an inexpensive way to say I love you, to say congratulations, any reason really. It's just fun to give a lei. Okay, I'm going to show you a way that I use to cut the ribbon to about uniform lengths. I used to just pull it and cut it, you know, by eyeballing it, or if I was really fussy, I would measure each one, but that takes too long. So I happen to have this construction square, but you can use anything really. And I use tape to attach my ribbon to this construction square. And you want the tape to be going this way, not like that, okay? And I start wrapping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's the number of ribbons you need for your ties. And then I put my scissors on about a 45-degree angle and cut. And there I go. Drop some on the floor, but that's okay. And these are pretty much the same size. And that's fast. I realize that not everybody is going to want to go out and get a 2x4 and use a router to cut a groove down the middle. So I thought, what can I show them that will be easy? Well, I went to the Dollar Tree store and found 2 of these floaty things. I taped them together, marked off the sections. Now the reason I mark it off is so I don't have to count candies, because that takes time, counting candies. So you just put them in there. But this works just as nicely. The glad wrap does kind of stick to this, but it makes a really easy jig, and it only costs $1. No, $2. $1. Just making 1 or 2 lays, you don't need a jig like this, like either of these jigs. This $2 jig, and I don't think this was much more, but of course, like I said, you'd have to have a router and route out a groove. But the thing I like about this is that it holds the candy in place while you're placing the candies and also while you're tying it. And you don't have to count because you have your little markings. Now, if you just want to make 1 lay, then just put your glad wrap out on the table, place your candies the way you'd like them to be, and again, fold the glad wrap over, make kind of a seal, and then start rolling. But like I said, I sometimes make 35 or more, sometimes 50 lays a month. So I like my jig. So this is a very simple lay, easy to make, really fast. This is the bow that I was fluffing up earlier. I like to add some ties. But if you want to see some examples of different kinds of lays, more elaborate lays, I'd like to show you some.